Bonsoir, mes amis. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a very good Wednesday today. There's a lot happening today. I'm going to be getting into James B. Eads, James Buchanan Eads, and the St. Louis Bridge today. I have been trying to get my chat box to work, but that right now is not coming up for some reason. So we're just gonna power through and see what happens without it. But just a heads up, my chat box is not working and Streamlabs being a little finicky today. A little fussy baby. That's what we are working with. But welcome everyone. And again, a lot to get into today with bridges and a lot to get into with Eads and the St. Louis Bridge specifically. Overall, learning about all of this, it's always fascinating. You know me at this point. It's always fascinating for me because the more I learn, again, the more I realize how little I know. Indeed, how little I know. Today, I'm going to start off with Indiana Jones. I know. I'm going to start off with Indiana Jones and see what happens. Oh my goodness. We're going to start off with Indiana Jones and see what happens. And then, I don't know. And then we'll just get on from there. This heat, people, this weather and the humidity, it's insane. It's legit insane. But without much further ado, here is Indiana Jones. And let's watch this little clip because it's funny. Because we need to like jazz up and get livened up and get in the mood to like, learn about some stuff. But first, we need to smile. We need to laugh. And these movies, it's been a while. It's been a while. Has it been a while for you too, watching Indiana Jones? Because for me, I don't know. It's been a couple years. I want to say maybe I'm not going to age myself over here, okay? I'm not going to date myself like that. But, it's been a minute. It's been a minute for sure. A bunch of bad guys falling into the water, getting eaten by alligators. Yes. I think that's a proper way to start a live stream. Don't you? People getting eaten by alligators? Getting eaten alive by alligators? Well, we don't know. It's a movie. It's a movie, but still. That's a little bit of our wish, right? We wish that all the bad guys would just go away and get eaten by alligators. That would be my wish, at least. But, I don't know. If it's your worst fear, though. If you really hate alligators, or you're really, like, irrational fear with alligators, I could understand, I could understand how it would just be like, yeah, I don't know. Even if the bad guys are getting in it. It's like the snake pit scene. When he's with the snakes inside the pit. They do a pretty good job of always putting snakes in these Indiana Jones movies. I'm like, why? But again, Indiana, he does hate snakes. I think they just want to torture him. I think it's just like, we want to torture you today. So meaning the character, which is why I think they always have it in there. They're always just, let's have a snake for no reason at all. Let's just have a snake in here. Huh. The chat is working? Wow. Well, I'm so glad the chat is working. Yay. Thank you for showing and helping us out with that, because I was a little worried that it wasn't working today. So yay. Thank you, Cullen. Ignore my message, by the way. And it makes me want to say hello. Hello to you too. But St. Louis Bridge, awesome bridge, first steel structure, first of a lot of things, first caisson in America, deepest caisson ever been in by humans, America especially. There is so much happening with the Eads Bridge or the St. Louis Bridge, but it looks so pretty. This is just so pretty. I'm in awe of this. It just looks gorgeous. I'm beginning to understand why men say machines are gorgeous. Like, once you understand the difficulty, the precision, the work that goes into it, a bridge does look beautiful. It really does. Or a submarine or a monitor top, they do begin to look beautiful. There's no other way to say it, because the work that they put into this stuff, it's as if it's like your brand new baby. Honestly, the amount of work and effort and energy these guys put into this, I imagine it's very much like that. Like, yeah, gotta just get things to work. But let's get into reading mode. Let's get pumping and let's get to reading. Perfect. Over here. So today, James B. Eads, the man who designed the St. Louis Bridge, the first bridge of its size, especially in America, and the first steel bridge that big and that, I would like to say, ambitious, very ambitious bridge. But the St. Louis Bridge was the world's first steel bridge. It was the first important construction of any sort in steel, the biggest bridge of any type ever built. It involved not only the first significant use in America of compressed air, but the deepest use of compressed air of that period. An astonishing record that reveals much about the innocent An astonishing record that reveals much about the innocent daring of the 19th century. It still remains, to this day, the deepest at which compressed air workers have ever sank. Another first was an ingenious sand pump, Eads devised for use inside the caisson. Feats that hard, visible, and tangible gave the world its image of modern America. Later, Eads would transform the New Orleans area into a year-round port. Eads was the first engineer to enter the American Hall of Fame. Perhaps a good bridge is itself an incomparable monument. Eads was named for his mother's cousin, James Buchanan, a Pennsylvania congressman who later became President of the United States. The boy spent a migrant youth with little formal education, for his father's business ventures never took off. After a period of bouncing around the North, the family settled in St. Louis, Missouri. James Eads educated himself by reading the library of his first employer, a St. Louis dry goods merchant. At 18, he became a purser on the Mississippi riverboat. Not long after, he began to consider means to recover by salvage the heavy losses from the frequent riverboat disasters. When he was 22, he invented a salvage boat, which he called a submarine. Actually, it was a surface vessel from which he could descend into a diving bell, which he had also designed. It allowed him to walk on the bottom of the river. He recovered lead, iron, pigs, iron pigs, and other valuable freight. On one occasion, he retrieved a cargo that included a large crock of butter. He was so successful in the 12 years of operation that he retired with a fortune at a very young age. During the Civil War, Eads designed boats that helped the North win. He proposed they build ironclad steam power warships with shallow draft to operate on the rivers. The U.S. government was slow to take him up on his offer, but eventually came around. He built the ships in record time, working 4,000 men, both day and night, 7 days a week. The novel craft he set afloat spearheaded Grant's offensive attack on Forts Henry and Donelson. It was the first important Union victories of the war. The vessels were the first ironclads to fight in North America, as well as the first in the world to engage enemy warships. The Monitor and Merrimac, both ironclads that battled in the American Civil War, were the first of such vessels to get up close in combat. Immediately after the war, Eads was chosen to direct a construction project of extraordinary difficulty, the bridging of the Mississippi at St. Louis. It's interesting with this one. It's called the St. Louis Bridge, but we're saying at Mississippi. And we're going to get more into that a little bit later, the why that would be the case. But the Mississippi is a whole topic of itself. It really is a whole topic of itself because there's so much we could get into with the Mississippi. But for now, we're going to contain our excitement because you know your girl over here is always trying to find ways to learn about more stuff, even though we can barely keep up. We can barely keep up with the info that's coming up. But apparently Shalinda just wants to know more things. So don't blame me, okay? Blame this other character named Shalinda. Oh, it's so funny. James B. Eads. I wanted to put a picture up here of him. It looks pretty cool. Again, it's like back in the day, the times when men dressed in full suits all the time and clean shaven, or the beards and the slick back hair. I feel like we all long for those days a little bit, the refinement of America, how well people dressed. But I suppose if we would want men to wear full suits, three-piece suits, I suppose women would have to go back to skirts. Floor-length skirts, that is. So it's nice to look at the picture, but I don't know if we need to live it today, especially in the summer when it's so warm. And these guys, even in summer, still need their suits. It's really funny. But the river, Mississippi. Mississippi over here, people. Running vertically, America. This river passes by, like if it's through like 5 states, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like it passes through 5 states. It has like, I want to say like 26 or 32 like rivers like coming into it. Canada has a couple provinces that drains into the Mississippi, and then it goes all the way down, and then it comes out, of course, at the end. We're looking at Louisiana down there, I believe. Alabama, Louisiana. Those 3 states always mess me up. But we're not playing 50 states right now. But anyways, you can see how big it is, and you can see that the blue coming over there on that edge. And if you're going to talk about how is the Missouri bridging the Mississippi, well, the Missouri meets with the Mississippi. And the Mississippi River is very important. It's a major artery. Imagine how quickly we can move everything in United States at that time period when we really, that was the best technology we had to move items from point A to point B as quick as possible. So, very important. A little bit confusing, but this bridge is a necessity, and this bridge is just, it's so pretty. I'm so excited. But more pictures of James B. Eads. Some of his pictures remind me of Abraham Lincoln. They really did, and it makes me want to cover Abraham Lincoln. We already know so much about him, but being the nerd that I am, it's exciting to me to like learn about Abraham Lincoln. Of all the presidents, I've repeated this before, but of all the presidents, if I were to cover one, it would probably be Abraham Lincoln. For obvious reasons. For obvious reasons. The man has, given America a lot. The man sacrificed his life for America, in a way. But I just want to show you, well, these are drawings, because then back then, 1867, we don't have pictures. Unfortunately, we covered the Baird television, and that was a great deal, behind what we are able to do in filming compared to today. But this is so pretty. The process and the incomplete. I get it now. These people I've always seen sometimes where they have like incomplete pictures of bridges like down below here. And I'm like, why do they have that there? It just looks ugly. But it doesn't. When you've studied it and you've looked a little bit into it, it looks really, really pretty. But this one over here, I wanted to show you this drawing as well. It's, again, super duper cool. Let me see if all the videos I have prepared, and let me see if I can find some other ones right now for bridge building for you. But you guys, I've been getting ready, been having fun over here, trying to keep my wits about me. I was listening to some music, just jamming out before I come out on here. I try to jam out, because it's just the wise thing to do. It really just is the wise thing to do. See, you even see some of my favorite artists of what I prefer to watch. Like, look at you, knowing all of my secrets. It's impressive. But this one creator, I enjoy watching them. They're just really funny in like taking the serious things in life and then, doing a parody, commenting and laughing about it and giving us some life advice. But today I needed a laugh. I needed to chillax and just get out of my head, which is why I was watching that stuff. Let us play, watch later videos. Bum, ba-da, ba-ba-da. Actually, this is perfect. This is an aerial view of the Eads Bridge. You'll see Carnegie's name is down here, and we know why Carnegie's name would be down here, because he's the man who supplied the steel for the bridge building. Carnegie always comes back around. All this research always comes back around, and it all connects, which is fascinating. But there's an aerial view of, or just a multiple different angle view of the St. Louis Bridge. Wow, it's cool. We got to see the St. Louis Arch, too. Fun fact, I've been in the St. Louis Arch. Bigger than it seems. And yes, you can go up in there, I know.
The structure suddenly sank.
Yeah, you can go up in the St. Louis Arch. It's pretty cool. It's so tiny. It's just so tiny. You feel like you're cramped, but you're not. There's more than enough room. But it's super cool. Super cool to be there. But that's a pretty bridge, isn't it? Don't you agree with me? It's such a pretty bridge. I'm like, I have my new thing. I have my new thing, and my new thing are bridges. That's what I've discovered. Let me see. We're going to continue doing some reading and get more info out of the way. But St. Louis, you get the idea. You get the idea. Perfect. And Eads. More Eads. Caissons. We're going to leave that one there, and then we're going to come back. We're going to come back to all of this. But you guys, this is crazy. This is legit crazy. And I'm so excited that I am really just leaving you behind. But I promise, we're going to catch up later, okay? We are all going to catch up on this later. But the music, didn't you like that music? It was kind of like a do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I like beats. I like to move around. A stereotype, okay? A stereotype is true. I will take this one stereotype. As a black woman, it is very difficult for me to sit still when there's a good beat, okay? Very, very difficult. I try to sit still, but I don't manage very well. So dancing and listening to music, I'm guilty. I'm guilty as charged. I can't even rebuke that, you know? No rebuttal. James Eads, studying the question in 1867, considered two distinct problems, the foundations and the substructure. Of the two, the first was the more critical, yet for an enduring bridge, a robust substructure was essential. Iron, which was discovered in ancient times, could be remelted and cooled. This is known as cast iron. Remelting the iron makes it hard but brittle. When it is melted a second time, most of the impurities are removed in a liquid state. It gains considerable tensile strength. Undergoing a third step of melting the raw iron and putting more carbon back into it made a much stronger metal, resulting in steel. All of this had been known for centuries. The trouble was reintroducing dicarbon was very difficult, and steel was consequently rare and costly. Until the year of 1856, when Henry Bessemer accidentally discovered the process for making cheap steel. Upon this discovery, a better process was created to make steel, known as the open hearth process. It became known in 1867, the same year James Eads conceived a great triple arch, which was to be made of steel as a means of bridging the Mississippi. At the time, steel was an absolutely new structural metal, never tried nor tested, though it was thought to be strong enough to withstand the Mississippi. It was one of the greatest calculated risks of engineering history. Before he could begin testing it, he had to overcome a problem of non-engineering nature. In 1867, Eads handed the directors a full outline of his plan. He had his conclusions checked by two men, Colonel Henry Flatt and Charles Pfeiffer. Eads began construction of his cofferdam for the west abutment on August 20th. Pile drivers, rook boats, derricks, engines, and barges began gathering at the foot of Washington Avenue in the midst of the St. Louis waterfront. Eads chose the site for his abutment strictly on the basis of the bridge's future usefulness. Consequently, it was located in the heart of the busy waterfront, which of course contained the greatest amount of wreckage and debris. The west abutment soon rose from the bedrock 47 feet below the city directrix. Total estimated cost for the bridge was a little over $3 million, of which the substructure would represent half. Acquisition of land and the construction of approaches would bring the total to about $5 million. Congress passed the Enabling Act, and the financial community showed signs of support. Steel, used in construction of the bridge, was subject to similar rigorous standards. It was inspected at the works and on site. Indeed, its supplier, the famed industrialist Andrew Carnegie, was forced to take back some batches for re-rolling, and some were still rejected as not conforming to the specified strength of 60,000 pounds, or 27,000 kilograms per square inch. Many other problems arose. To construct steel arches without disturbing navigation on the river, Eads used timber cantilevers to support them, with the halves of each arch held back by cables passing over the top of towers built on the piers. To join the two halves of the middle arch, Eads' deputy, Colonel Henry Flatt, had planned to hump the middle bridge arch slightly to bring the two halves together. Then, with the cantilever removed, the arch would assume its normal shape. Eads, on the other hand, had prepared a wrought iron plug fitted with threads. The last two arches ribs would be shortened by 5 inches each and cut with screw threads to receive the plug, which would close the distance between the ribs. Because of an annual mid-September warm spell which warped the bridge arches towards the north, Flat could not close the arches by the method he had chosen. After trying to cool the steel tubes with ice packs, they fell back on Eads' screw plug connection. The first arch was closed on September 17, 1873. The Eads or St. Louis Bridge, the largest bridge of any type built up to that time, was recognized throughout the world as a landmark of engineering achievement. With its pioneering use of structural steel, its foundations planted at record depths, and its cantilevering technique used for raising the arches. Wow, that's pretty cool. Oh, hey, did that come through again? I just want to make sure. But hello over here. There's a lot to go through for that one. In terms of the building and the substructure, the substructure is what gets me here. Because I don't think many of us are even aware to think about this one. The substructure, what we need to do below ground in order to even begin getting the foundation set for the bridge, is the most difficult work. And it is said, like you did see in there, that like $5 million. Sorry guys, I had to move my fan. $5 million was the estimation at the time for the bridge. At the time, 1867, okay? 1867 numbers. But $3 million of that was, saved for just the substructure. What does that tell you? It's just the craziest part is going to be figuring that out. The Mississippi, the biggest river in really the world in some cases, depending on what things you take in and take out of into account. Honestly, it's going to be no mean feat. Like, it's going to be so difficult to do this. And to get that to happen, we have to get into Caissons. And again, Carnegie popped up a little bit here, and you remember last time we've covered Carnegie before. The man is legend. He's one of my favorites. Carnegie's one of my favorites. But the Caissons is insane. It is insane. And all the different things that's happening, what they had to do was to basically find this new method in order to make the St. Louis Bridge a possibility. It was that difficult. And the thing for it is just the trial and error and the little bit that they knew. I'm always amazed with how they make the estimation for the number of what they need to pay or what it will cost when nothing has been sunk. They had to come up with new technologies just to figure out how to get to the depths. And in some cases, they reached below sea level 100 feet in some cases. And in the summer, when the water level rises, and again, it says that the water level would rise more than 40 feet, or 40 feet. That's a tricky one. Difference. And why would that be? If you're not really aware that the Mississippi spans basically through the United States, and the snow melting in the spring coming from Canada, collecting from all these rivers and feeding into a main artery, yes, it's gonna make the river rise by 40 feet. 40 feet. That's crazy. And these men, again, between January and February, or December to February, that is just, they closed that area because you really can't be doing work. Even for regular use, they closed the bridge. They closed the river at that point in time. because they're just too volatile. It's winter, ice, you get the idea. A lot of accidents can happen, the turbulence, to say the least. But that's the level. And this is just like thinking about sinking. We're only thinking about sinking foundation, the substructure. We haven't even gotten into all the other parts. And as we said, Carnegie provides a steel. And yes, Carnegie is a bit of a stickler because he's into, hey, we got to make sure we get things done. We got to make sure everything's right. And we remember, if you've been here for a bit, reading about Carnegie and learning about him yelling at his lieutenants. He would like send these messages, be like, it is unacceptable that rails to so-and-so have been sent and they are of poor quality. It is absolutely, it's like, it is absolutely disgraceful. I would rather pay out of my own pocket the 5,000 sum than to have deformed rails returned back. Carnegie, he's just so crazy. But the Caissons. We're going to talk real quick about what the Caissons allows us to do. And a little bit, the Caissons and how without it, we would not have been able to do the St. Louis Bridge. We couldn't have done it. So let's learn a little bit about that. The Caisson, a pneumatic method. It is an airlock that consists of a chamber with two airtight doors or openings, usually arranged in a series. Airlocks can be small-scale mechanisms such as those used in fermenting, or large mechanisms which often take the form of an antechamber. Preparation. How do they get it down there, and how do they fit it and get it to work? And what types of caissons do they typically use? That's a different thing. There's different types of caissons, different type of steel, different type of concrete, different type of any material you can think of. If we women have 1,000 different lipsticks, color, and we can know the difference, men have 1,000 different forms of material and mixtures to build things. That's what they like to do. They like to categorize their concrete. I'm joking with you guys, but honestly, you guys you're getting at me here. I mean, I know there's a purpose to it and why you do it, but still, I could say that lipstick has a purpose too. But 1,000 different lipsticks? That's a lot. It is a closed-top, open-bottom box or cylinder that is sunk into the ground or water by using compressed air to displace water and soil. This creates a dry working environment within the caisson for excavation and foundation construction. So the top is closed, the bottom is open. They sink it in the ground, and then they use air to remove the water, displace the water and soil. That's what they're saying in this one. They displace it, which fancy words for move. Pressurization. Air is pumped into the caisson, creating a pressurized environment that pushes out water and soil. Wow. So they place it properly, they remove the water and soil and displace these things, and then they pump air into it, which pushes out water and soil, and they create a pressurized environment. Excavation. Workers operating in the pressurized chamber excavate the soil and remove it from discharge pipes. As excavation continues, the caisson is reinforced and the foundation for the structure is built inside the dry working chamber. I know, it's a lot happening over here, but this is what you can expect that to look like. Usually box or a rectangle type of thing. And they're like different rows in here you can kind of see. It's like the way that they're doing it, it's as if, yeah, it is different chambers. And they're blocking things off. This is just a depiction over here of what we can expect. And they have two different compartments in how they do it. They're never open at the same time, but rather, allows workers to enter and exit depending on what's happening, but one's always dry and then one is usually wet. Explanation of the caisson. They are used to create stable foundations for bridge piers and abutments in deep water for challenging soil. Also utilized in construction of deep foundations for tall buildings, especially where soil conditions are poor. Another use are for building seawalls, jetties, and other structures requiring deep foundations in water as well as dams. The cost. It's gonna be high. The cost of a caisson, not even like the caisson and the material itself, but like the men, the time, the steel, the effort. All of it just makes the process way more difficult. So I could see a situation where people are trying to get something done and they didn't anticipate that they would need a caisson or to do something like this, but then they find out that the ground is not in good condition as they had thought, or maybe they hit a certain part of the riverbed that is, sunk deep, or it's not the best, environment, or not the best foundation to begin with. Then they would have to bring a caisson, and then you can understand how the cost would balloon up. So I could understand it if they're not, really thinking about this. But what are some of the bad things that happen when men go down into a caisson 100 feet below sea level, 40 feet, 75 feet? What happens to guys? What happens in general to people when that happens, when they descend quickly under a decent amount of pressure? Think of like skydivers. Think of scuba divers or divers. Potential for decompression sickness. Potential for decompression sickness. Workers need to be properly trained and monitored to prevent decompression sickness from getting the bends, as they call it. A good example that comes to mind is a diver's ascent or aviator's climb to altitude. These bubbles can cause a variety of symptoms ranging from joint pain to neurological issues and, in severe cases, death. The primary cause is a sudden decrease in ambient pressure, causing dissolved gases, primarily nitrogen, in the body to come out of solution and form bubbles. Yeah, don't get the bends. Lots of respect for the men actually willing to test these limits, for sure. A lot of respect for these guys, because I've never thought about it. I never even before any of this, I've always thought, oh, bridge people, they're just up at the top and they're just, they're just doing their thing and hanging up there. But no, there's work, and the majority of their job happens below ground. And that is so crazy. It really is. Let's look at a video of us getting a caisson to sink below ground.
The structure suddenly sank. Water.
Okay. That was odd. Typically this works like a jam. So let's try a different video just in case. I just wanted to show this one. We are working on completing the bridge for this one, but I just wanted to show you like in progress, because it's rare that we stop to look at these structures when they are being built. And this one over here gives me vibes of an abutment, I think, but I could be wrong. I think that's what that is going to be. But that's just crazy that 2/3 of the money is just for the substructure. That's amazing, and it's crazy. But that's a pretty good view. That's a panoramic view right there. Alrighty, so there's that one. Let's see which other one.
When the structure
Perfect. Let's see. When the structure sank. Okay.
suddenly sank, water rushed in around the site and poured over the small excavator. But instead of panic, the workers cheered. This wasn't an accident or a protest. They were actually using the caisson method to build a deep foundation. Here's how it works. Workers dig.
Okay, so he in this one you may have heard they say caisson, but the French word it is caisson, and it is French, and you can use it interchangeably. With the when we were talking about it again, James B. Eads also discovered this when he was in France, which is why I always use the French word and just say caisson, but you can say it interchangeably. Okay, so we talked about the bends. So we just saw the caisson, it's sinking, it's deliberately being done that way. That's on purpose. They want to do it down that way. There's one structure where if it's going down, they actually do prefer that. That's their aim, is for it to go down. The bends, we talked about when the men go down there and they do basically risk their lives. In the case of Eads, this was the first time they're coming across it, so they had no clue and just had to work on the fly and figure it out. Now, this is an example of a person getting the bends, or I think for this dude, he set out to replicate what it would look like in the blood when you have nitrogen getting out of balance and more bubbles forming in a blood of humans. Let's just take a look. It's a visual thing. We don't really need words. I'll speak all the words for you.
In the bends with real blood. Bends is a life-threatening sickness that happens when you come to the surface too fast after breathing compressed gases deep below the surface of water. So I have a vial of my own blood that I'm going to pressurize to 60 psi and let it sit there for a while.
Okay. So he has a vial of his own blood. Let's just go on with that and let's actually listen, because I think some of this part it'd be good to hear the instruction as he's going along.
There for a while. So notice before we put it in, you don't see any little bubbles or anything in there. I've tried to keep it very smooth so that it's a clear liquid without any bubbles from shaking it or anything. The top's open here so that the pressure can get to the blood. As the vial sits there, the air that's in the chamber is going to dissolve into the blood slowly. But then once it has dissolved into the blood, if I quickly release the pressure, that now causes the partial pressure of the nitrogen in the blood to be higher than the outside air. So it now dissolves out of the blood and forms tiny little bubbles. These bubbles are the problem. This can happen not just in your blood, but in your tissues as well. So these tiny bubbles can cause excruciating pain and even death if it blocks tiny blood vessels in your heart and brain.
I want to go back.
I wanted to simulate what happened.
Okay. So I'm gonna try, but I'm moving my mouse over here. But you get the idea. There are little tiny bubbles in here. And he did 60 psi, I want to say. But these tiny little bubbles, they are strong enough to wreak havoc. Strong enough to wreak havoc to the point, well, where it causes death. Yes. The bends is so scary. It is such a horrible thing to get. Not only the excruciating pain, but also, death is kind of annoying at the time when you're not really, ready, or when you're not really planning for it. You have things to do. Death can be annoying, okay? Who has time for that? I do not sometimes. In this case, I'd be like, I can't, I give up. But this is an example of a person who got the bends, what their body looks like. That's crazy. And again, I do not know all the things, so for this one, we're going to take it with a grain of salt. Okay, we're going to just explore, but this is an example. And that's just insane. This man, I'm not going to go there. Okay, I'm not going to go there. I'm behaving, okay? I'm behaving. Goodness gracious. Cofferdams versus Caissons. That's horrifying. I know. Hey, that's so horrifying. And the thing is, like, I don't know how divers do it. But they also said that pilots can also get it, which is shocking to me because I wouldn't have expected that a pilot would get it. That's shocking. But Caissons are over here. We're going to leave them there. And we're going to do more reading mode. because we love reading and it's fun. The Mississippi River, the longest river of North America, draining with its major tributaries an area of approximately 1.2 million square miles, or 3.1 million square kilometers, or about 1/8 of the entire continent, lies entirely within the United States, rising in Lake Itasca in Minnesota. It flows almost due south across the continental interior, collecting the waters of its major tributaries, the Missouri River to the west, the Ohio River to the east. Approximately halfway along its journey to the Gulf of Mexico through a vast delta southeast of New Orleans, a total distance of 2,340 miles or 3,766 kilometers from its source. With its tributaries, the Mississippi drains all or part of the 31 U.S. states and 2 provinces in Canada. So Shalinda was wrong. It wasn't around 23, it's 31. More than half of our states. And 2 provinces provinces in Canada. Wow, that's amazing. As the central river artery of a highly industrialized nation, the Mississippi River has become one of the busiest commercial waterways in the world. It is the neighbor to some of the continent's richest farmland and has therefore been subjected to a remarkable degree of human control. Furthermore, the river's unique contribution to the history and literature of the United States has woven a bright thread through the folklore and national conscientiousness of North America. Yes, the Mississippi River, very good for farmland. You also want to know why America has very good farmland? How about a river going through 10 states, basically? Like bridging 10 states. It's insane. Or you think of the West, the Midwest, the corn and all the farming, all the water and the richness of the soil. And again, you have to think the way that nutrients are carried from place to place is through a river. You know me, I'm a little nerd over here, and by now you know it's true. So, unless you wanted to hear about these things, you wouldn't be here. But you guys, when all this water is coming all the way up from Canada, if you're thinking kind of like the terrain where it's at, the fish, the streams, the fresh water, and the nutrients that's coming from that river and the soil adjacent to it is going to be fertile. And sediments picking up all the minerals. The Mississippi is not only awesome and necessary for America for traveling and moving resources, it's also a great source for providing enrichment to our farmlands. That's very, very cool. And the rivers are really important in an ecosystem. I recall this information of salmon, how salmon actually makes trees grow and actually, make them grow better, faster, longer, and the ground be more enriched. And the reason for this is because when bears eat salmon, the bones are left or they're discarded, or the heads of the fish are not eaten, or not all parts of the fish are eaten by a particular animal. So it's left on the edges of the river. And then that gets into the soil, or it decomposes, and the protein from the fish, it slowly moves along. And you have to think different animals, small animals, pick up on those pieces, and they end up bringing it in or around the trees. And just having that line, that shoreline, and having salmon in a river and having the river be healthy contributes to then the trees being healthy because of how the nutrients get passed on. Isn't that cool? I know, it's so cool. And the Mississippi, that vital for several reasons. But Caissons over here, Cofferdam over here. What is the difference? One, we're using pressurized air. We have more than one chamber, and water is typically dry, one is typically wet. And Caissons, I'm most certain we can sink them much further than a cofferdam. Cofferdam is just the piles of wood like we talked about. It's just one hole open in the middle, and then you see the water down below in this cofferdam. And then they try to do what they can to, the Romans at least, put in clay, which is impervious to water, and they began building their foundations. For the caisson, water can be pumped out of one of the chambers and make it completely dry for the men to enter and work in. That's the difference. And also, we can sink caissons much further, much deeper than compared to a cofferdam. And of course, a caisson has, it's able to be used in different arenas rather than just the body of water. They also use it in different soil, or I'm sorry, in different terrain that's maybe not as suitable, not completely dry or hard soil, but not completely wet either. Think of we talked about a little bit in there how Eads would end up going down to Louisiana and helping around in the area a little bit later, and getting their infrastructure going and trying to build in the South. The soil in the South is very weird, and especially Louisiana and that area, it's like a pluth mud. Yeah, like a, think kind of like Yellowstone with that like muddy, like bubbling muddiness, except it doesn't look cool. You can smell the sulfur. It is pungent. Abutment. I had mentioned abutment a little bit. It is a structure built to support the lateral pressure of an arch or span at the ends of a bridge. Abutment, it's looking like, so it's just the edges. And it's like usually embedded, like very close to, the closest possible terrain that they can find, or bedrock that they can find. If you're thinking of a chasm, this is a good example. It just showed you abutment here, like where is it, and like anchoring the bridge and at what edge. And the closest one, as good of a foundation, the most stable, as close as possible, is usually what they use for abutments. So again, over here, there are piers usually sunk in the middle. You're thinking like we use a caisson to begin the piers, and they're coming up here. The abutment is the edge, like holding. Think of it like just like holding it like this. I don't know. Like my camera's okay. Like trying to trying to look in the camera, but like it's like a tension thing. Steel. Why do we love steel in structures? Steel is used primarily throughout the world in major for the primary. It's a material, or the type of metal primarily used in building infrastructure, such as bridges and also buildings. So we love steel, very durable, and Carnegie really. Without him, I don't know if we would have the infrastructure of America that we do today. Again, the status quo, the way that Carnegie challenged what was currently being done by the aristocracy in Pittsburgh at the time, is phenomenal. And the level of competition that he brought to the steel industry made steel cheaper, because everyone needs to compete. And when Carnegie is first beginning, actually, the St. Louis Bridge is kind of giving him his start in really getting a foothold in the steel business, because he has to secure, jobs. And the steel bridge, the St. Louis Bridge, is one of his first ones. And it definitely helped in then being able to build the rest of America, and also America becoming known for being one of the, honestly, I think one of the best countries in bridge building. We have the coolest looking bridges, one of the most durable types of bridges, and also all of these bridges have lasted for such a long period of time. I don't think we've had to really build much since James Eads, since Carnegie. So it just speaks to the level of genius and how just talented these men were, and I just to have lasted for so long, like 150 some years, 100 years. That's amazing. That's so cool. I'm I'm in awe. I really am. Steel. It is an alloy or iron and carbon that demonstrates improved mechanical properties compared to the pure form of iron due to its high elastic modulus, yield strength, fracture strength, and low raw material cost. Steel is one of the most commonly manufactured materials in the world. In the world. That's amazing. We talked about the Mississippi. It includes numerous bodies of water, 31 states, some Canadian provinces draining into it. The major tributaries of the Mississippi River are Arkansas, Illinois, Missouri, Ohio, and the Red Rivers. Missouri is like right here. So we're kind of meeting Missouri. Oh my goodness. It's just this point here. It's looking like there's a lot happening. A lot happening. And so many rivers like draining into this. Illinois, the Wood River. Of course, we have other things around here, but Missouri coming around here, and then it's just super duper cool. Average flow contribution of the Mississippi River tributaries. Coming, all these rivers are just east, west, north. They're all meeting and coming into the Mississippi. That's just amazing. And it looks pretty. It really does look pretty. But you know how I was talking about how like the whole United States vertically just cuts right through it? Right there. What's the most important river in the U.S.? Yeah, I think it's going to have to be the Mississippi. I really do. Yeah, it's a major artery. It carries everything. I really do think it is the Mississippi. Perhaps anyone else can think of any other ones? Any ones you can think of that's better than the Mississippi or more valuable than the Mississippi? Perhaps. I don't know in what way it could be more valuable than the Mississippi, but I don't know. I don't think there's any other body of water, a river per se, that is more important than the river in the U.S. or the most important river in the U.S. I think it's a Mississippi. The cantilever, the type of bridge. We talked about different types of bridges. The St. Louis Bridge is a cantilever. That is a type of bridge. It is. A cantilever bridge is constructed using cantilevers, which project into space supported only on one end. It is built with two cantilevers that meet in the middle bridge span, allowing pedestrians or vehicles to cross an obstacle such as a river. More into it. We have steel truss support loads for the tension of the upper members and compression of the lower ones. Commonly, the structure distributes the tension via the anchor arms to the outermost supports, while the compression is carried to the foundations beneath the central towers. So tension meeting up here, compression coming here. This was super cool to see and to get to know like how it works, but I really wanted to get into it because I wanted to learn about it further because I'm so curious and I can't really grasp it entirely. So let's look at this bridge. We have the anchor arm over here. This is a cantilever arm here. And then this is the suspended span. So this is, it has nothing. It has no piers holding it up here. So how do they do it? Like we saw in the diagram, it looks like, again, suspension is coming and attaching here, and compression is coming from below and attaching here. Ooh. So it looks like it's being pushed, and at the same time, it's being pulled, like it's taut. Ooh. Anybody have a very good example or a good way of putting that? I would love to know. Put it down below. But it makes me think that like you're getting both. You're getting both, like it's squeezing it in and also like pulling it out. And I think this is something that's awesome for making sure that the bridge is safe. Because during the winter, if you can think of contraction, and in the summer, if you can think of expansion, I think the suspension up top, the compression on the bottom covers both of those things for the elements. It's the other thing about these bridges. We need to account for load, we need to account for usefulness, we need to account for the piers and the structure, and most importantly, we also need to account for the elements. Because I recall seeing a bridge online where the bridge was like blowing in the wind, and it just I think it got ripped apart and it just like came flying apart. Let me see. I don't know. I could be wrong though. It's been a while. Tacoma Bridge collapsed. So yeah, we do have bridges that do collapse, and that's why I'm like the St. Louis Bridge. Again, I know they do repair on these things, but we're just gonna look at this while we talk. I know they do repairs on these things, but when they go down, when we take the elements into account, what they can do, the wind, the tsunamis, the earthquake, look at that move. That's the other thing. These guys need to build these bridges with some ability to, maneuver and, shift. But I don't think it was made to shift that much. I think this is an earthquake happening over here. Wow. And these guys kind of look like they're not even aware because they can't feel it up there. Wow. That's so insane. You guys, how about if you were on a bridge and this happened to you? I would lose it. Actually, I've already been in an earthquake, so I suppose I would just be like, take two. Wow. That's so crazy. Oh my goodness. No way. Wow. Okay, that's a bridge falling apart. London Bridge is falling down, my people. Flume writing. This is the one I wanted to get into real quick, and we're having a lot of fun over here. So let's just continue the party. But I'm going to drink some water before we continue. Ooh. Where am I? Flume writing. That's where we are. Flume writing. So, the men work a lot. They have a lot of stuff to do. And life is, 72-hour work week. It's pretty harsh. It is pretty harsh. They need an outlet. They need to calm down and decompress and go have some bit of fun every once in a while. And flume writing is an interesting one. So once a week, in the words of these men, we'd save out some good timbers to ride on, one veteran said, and balance ourselves with a piece of edging like a tightrope walker. Down the plume the lodges slid, at an average speed of 10 miles an hour, sometimes whirling around mountain bends or shooting over gorges, 3 or 4 times that fast, singing, yelling, careening, and sometimes falling off. You guys, I may have written that wrong. I'm uncertain. It may be plume with a P, so my bad and my mistake if I do. And I'm gonna do some more research just to make sure. But the difference between flume and plume writing. Look at these guys. Look at this. This is so these things were first used to move logs down, downstream for to get the timber from point A to point B for bridge building, for example, but it could be used for numerous reasons. But this kind of stuff, it makes me think of the log rides in amusement parks. It makes me think, like, where did that come from? And I think plume riding, the bridge sport, I really do think it could have been, I think it could have been from this. But let's see. I don't know. So, it was a long practiced, the man bridge sport, the plume riding, was a long practice in the American West. And it still is in some places in Western Canada. Flume riding is a mile-long timber trestle that wanders down a mountainside, jumping over an occasional gorge. It contains a few inches of water from a stream at the top. Its invention was an ingenious answer to the problem of tacking lumber down from the Green Mountain of taking lumber down from the Green Mountain tops to the sawmills. This solution prevented such troubles, including the building of roads and the laborious process of using horse-drawn wagons. Timbers were thrown into the flume at the top and taken out, sometimes 15 miles later at the bottom. Along the way, there were some difficulties. Operators manned the flume using hookah runes to break jams. The hookah runes are kind of like large handled pick hammers. But we talked about Eads working on the Mississippi River a little bit. Growing up, one of his first jobs was Missouri, Mississippi. Kind of used a little bit. We know that they merged together. But one of his first jobs was working on the river. And when he was, looking about and seeing all these differences, what he came across is just that the accidents that were happening and the amount of freight that was being lost in this river and, his job, the difficulty of it all. After witnessing so many accidents and so many cargoes getting lost, he developed a process to try and salvage it. We had mentioned it in the story. And he was so successful, again, he retired in 12 years. A little bit I probably didn't say was that he tried starting a glass business. It didn't really do well. The market at the time with Mexico and what was happening with the trade, it didn't take off. So he had to come back to the drawing board. And then this time around, he starts again. And then we have, his company and the boats that he tried. He was successful. He told America, or he told the North about developing the monitor top, as we talked about, in order to work out on the river. He had been working there since he was 18, he began working on the river. He first started off kind of an errand boy in a way, but almost just, I suppose, a person who mans the steam river boats. He does the work of trying to bargain for gas. He gets the cargo ready, make sure that things are ready to go. And oftentimes he had to get in and out of the mud and to do with all that. So he worked his way up, and he's been in the river for all of his adulthood. So he knows how things change. He knows the tides. He knows how things move. And at this time, when he's telling the North to make the monitor top and the Merriam, I would like to say, I may be wrong, these two battleships were instrumental in the North winning. I now understand that the North won because of technology. I do not think the North had the numbers. I think the North won because of technology. The ability, we had men on all different sides working on this, you guys. We talked about Carnegie and how, he, on the railroads, he was really contributing to this war, the Civil War, and helping the North win. We also have James B. Eads working and helping the North win with these design of these boats. Actually, the forts that were defended, were they survived, was because of the monitor top. And, the other one, again, we're going to get into the name one more time. But his designs, pivotal, instrumental in us winning. And then later on, the United States government would be like, okay, well, you succeeded in giving us this. How about you try to bridge the Mississippi? That's how that kind of came about. But I had to leave you with one final beautiful picture. Oh, my heart. Oh my goodness, you guys. It's been a lot of fun covering this one. I've had a lot of fun with you guys today. Learning about this is just so cool. But I'm going to hang out for a bit. If you want to send some messages, that's cool. I am down for that. So we can chat. But over here, I'm gonna wait here for a minute and just chillax and have fun. And we're just gonna, play around for a minute until I would say 8:15. All right, let's give it a couple minutes. Let's just give it a couple minutes and see what happens. But I'm kind of open-minded to different things that happen. But some more videos that I had done today. Let's see. Playlist. You guys, the amount of research I need to do, the amount of writing and editing that I need to do, I clean, meaning like I purge my computer of stuff and I get rid of stuff, like because I have to. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job of doing that. But, you guys, it just piles up just as quickly as I get rid of them. Everything just piles up just as quickly. I'm like, okay, well, I tried. I tried. But this is what I was talking to you about. The plume writing, this is crazy. Woo! How many of you are scared? Like that was coming towards you. Like, ah! That one's like, I always avoid that ride. Like standing in front of it, everybody will tell you. Like I remember at least my mom being like, "Don't stand in front of that. You're gonna get soaked. Don't do it." And then also I remember being in high school and then my friends daring me to do it. Be like, "You won't do it." Like you're right. I will not be doing it because I'm not gonna be going through the rest of this park drenched. Okay, so of course the guys will do it because they're guys and they don't have to wear a bra, so they don't understand how like wet clothes with a bra, torture. You want to torture a woman, be like, okay honey, you have to wear your wet clothes, you just have regular clothes, regular bra, and you have to just get dunked in water. Be like, see how fast your lady runs. I would run just as fast. For me, all you have to do is just threaten my hair. I know, like a true black woman, you just have to threaten my hair, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm good. I am good. This is my natural hair. I have to brag over here. Okay, my natural hair. But still, the work that goes into it, no. No, I can't get my hair wet. It's too much effort. It's too much effort. The bends. We talked about the bends. I think we hit pretty much on everything. Doo-doo-doo. We have that one. We did the Caissons. America. The Mississippi. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's do this one. This one looks cool. America. So 3 rivers, major one. Well, 2 major ones, kind of like getting into it, moving into it. Lake, wow. All Itasca, all the way up in Minnesota. Ohio, the Gulf of Mexico, leads into the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. So 20 feet wide at that particular point. Spans an astonishing, this particular point, that lake was like 11 miles. It spans 11 miles. Oh, I can't. Wow. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool for that one. I like that video. But let me see. James B. Eads Buchanan. Yes, he was named after, I would like to say, his second cousin, because it was his mom's cousin, Buchanan, whom he was named after, who became the president of the United States. Which is fascinating how all these guys are tied. And for this one, it looks as if that, like, yeah, you may have a cousin who is like congressman in Pennsylvania and eventually president of the United States, but you get zero special treatment because Eads actually grew up a very, I would say, lower middle class kind of life. In the little bit of the story that we talk about, like his dad moved them from place to place a lot, trying to look for new opportunities and trying to, like, you know, get ahead. And that really never happens for the family. And one would think Well, if you do have a congressman for a cousin, can't he pull some strings? Perhaps, perhaps strings were pulled when Eads was given the opportunity or was given the job to build the Mississippi. But Eads had also proved himself. He had built the monitor top for us, and he had gone ahead and make it possible, you know, for the North to win. So I think him getting rewarded and him getting the contract for the Mississippi is really, I mean, he's proven himself and he is the man for the job. Like, right place at the right time, but perhaps family connections helped him with a bit of a boost. We can acknowledge that. Maybe he had a little bit of a boost. But the man worked hard. The man did the work. He made a fortune and lost it. I think that's the best way sometimes to judge like a business guy or an entrepreneur is when they have been a success and then they take an opportunity. In this case for Eads, he took the opportunity and he tried to begin working in glass. That didn't work out, but then he came back and then succeeded again. Now that is success, is when you failed once but then you get back up. It reminds me of Captain America. You're always gonna get back up. You're gonna fall down 10 times, get back up 11 times. Always, always, always get back up. And again, these stories are cool looking back. The struggle. Like I don't like stories about people who are already well off and then I find out, your rich daddy. You mean your rich daddy gave you money and you're already well off? I'm not that impressed by it. Not many of us are. Because, I mean, it's not really an adventurous story, is it? There aren't really bends and turns. And I suppose part of the reason why life is so difficult sometimes is because those very bends and turns are hell when we're in the middle of it. In fact, when we look back in our lives, they make for some pretty great stories. Look at me with the wisdom today. Oh my goodness. Oh, guys, I've been having so much fun that I've lasted like 8:20. I feel like now we have to do 8:20. And I could, I could filibuster this. I could definitely do it. But we are working on some new changes, and I think moving forward, we're going to do some new things with the chat, and I look forward to doing further engagements and further improvements with you guys. But for now, au revoir, à demain, à semaine prochaine.